Well, welcome into Pony Pundits here, brought to you by WagerTalk.com. As the final leg of the Triple Crown is upon us, the 155th running of the Belmont Stakes. And got a bunch of stuff, not only horses, but other things to break down about this weekend of racing in the New York area. And I can't think of two guys better to help navigate through it all than the pundits themselves, as Sig is in the house, ready to roll, as was Marco D'Angelo. And gentlemen, welcome in. Feels like it was just yesterday we were talking about the Preakness, and then it was the Kentucky Derby, and now, of course, the Belmont here. But some issues across the board. We're hearing about anybody in that area having a hard time breathing right now. That would include the horses, Marco. There was some concern that this race wouldn't even go off, but it appears that as of Thursday, the race card was canceled for Thursday. But so far, no decision has been made one way or the other. So if you're watching this and it's still up in the air, keep tabs on it. But what's the latest, Marco, you're hearing on this?
Well, obviously, it's going to take a lot for them to cancel this, but it is a concern, Joe, especially this is the test of champions. We're going a mile and a half. None of these horses have ever gone this far before, and most of them are gasping for air coming down that long stretch at Big Sandy anyways. And if you got smoke-filled, air to consume, It's going to make things tough. So the decision to cancel races at a lot of places yesterday was the right decision, err on the side of caution. But I think with 2 days to get things taken care of, hopefully get some wins in there to, move things around, everything will be good for Saturday. And as far as the race goes itself, Joe, I know the Kentucky Derby was an exciting finish. That's the big jewel of the Triple Crown. But this could be the best race. We've got almost all of the big players here at this one. So no asterisks from like the Kentucky Derby where Forte had to be scratched. We didn't get to see him race in the Derby. Obviously, the horse that won the Preakness, the Bob Baffert trainee, was not allowed to race in the Derby. So we got a lot of different subsets to this Belmont, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I mean, Sig, for the most part, this might be, the most competitive one that we have seen, although it feels like a tale of two races, right? We had the Kentucky Derby, and we talked about it then, was just flying. Those fractions were adequate. We never thought we'd see it again, and sure enough, we saw it again. Didn't exactly see those same kind of speed numbers there in the Preakness, and yet here we go with the Belmont, with maybe the best crop of horses we've seen yet in these Triple Crown races. That what would be a yes, Sig, or would that be a no?
I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm just curious. Would that be
my esteemed colleague over there?
Yeah.
No, we have a field here for the Belmont Stakes. Nowhere near the 18-20 horses that we saw at the Derby, but a little better than the Preakness field that we saw. A lot of talent in this field. We only have a few trainers in this field. Brad Cox has 3 in here. Fletcher's got a couple. Of course, we have the aforementioned Baffert, who's back in New York after that year suspension. So it's going to be a quality field, and I think that we're looking forward to quite a good race and quite a good racing weekend at Belmont Park.
Yes, we are. And we've got, let's face it, we've got a couple of... we got a couple things to break down in this race. We've got opportunities for you to partner up with both Sig and Marco, and of course, we will do that and explain that to you as Sig has his page over at WagerTalk.com, wt.buzz/Sig, and if you use that code BEL10, you can use that for both Marco and Sig, in fact, and you'll get $10 off the packages they have available for this Belmont Stakes Saturday. For Sig, it's a $29 full card selection, Friday and Saturday racing at Belmont Park. And for Marco, well, he's got a $39 all-access package on his page, which will include every sport, including all the races at Belmont there on Saturday for you. Just visit his page at wt.buzz/MD. All right, as customary here, we are just going to fly down these horses and we'll go through each one, seeing what you guys think of this. And we'll start, of course, with Marco, I believe, because I do believe this is a 20-1 shot. So who better to kick us off and say pass than Marco D'Angelo? So, Marco, let's hear it. Toss, tap it, shoes. What are you thinking?
Well, Joe, you're going to see a pattern here with the horses that I'm getting to talk about today because, my esteemed colleague, I gave him all the trash horses in the last one. So it was only right to let him have the feature headline on the good horses in this one, the even odd draw here. So I'm going to start it off with Tappet Shoes. And this is a horse that's got 5 career starts and has improved his speed figures in all of 5 starts. But let's be honest, this is by far the toughest field that he has faced so far. He is a Brad Cox trainee. You look at this one coming into this race. Is he in here maybe to be the rabbit for Brad Cox? He's got 3 of them in here, and we're going to talk about 2 of them later in the show that have a much better shot. So if this one's here for a purpose and purpose only, that might be to make sure we get an honest pace in this one, as I'm sure Sig will talk about when we get to one of the favorites in the race. But I don't see this horse being a legit contender in this one. He's got the 5 career starts, only the 1 win. For me, he is a pass. There are better horses to look at in this year's Belmont.
All right, well, Marco, as he said, was nice enough to take some of the toss horses here, since that's pretty much all we got from you, Sig, in the Preakness. So I'm going to throw the number 2 horse to you, Tappet Trice. A lot of folks excited about this horse here. A lot of history at the Belmont. 3-1 in the morning line. Tell me what you think of the number 2 horse.
Yeah, Joe, luckily Marco gave me some horses I could actually talk about this week instead of Preakness week, where we could pretty much just toss every single horse I talked about. But hey, Tappet Trice, the Todd Pletcher trainee, had won 4 straight races, including 2 Derby preps leading into last month's Kentucky Derby. And he was one of your favorites going into the gate after his stablemate Forte got scratched early that morning. A poor start that day. A troubled trip got the best of this colt that first Saturday in May. But jockey Luis Saez was still able to make up ground late. And even though they had that troubled trip and got Tappet Trice up to finish 7th on that first Saturday in May here. He's a versatile horse that can either come from off the pace or press the pace here. And his pedigree being a Tappet screams so he can get the distance here. A Tappet Sire colt has won 4 of the past 9 Belmont Stakes. That's something to take note of here. There are 2 Tappet Sires in here. Marco just talked about the other one, Tappet Shoes. Todd Pletcher knows how to get a horse ready for the marathon distance here at Big Sandy for the Belmont Stakes here. Last year, he had the Pletcher Exacta with Mo Donegal winning and the Philly Nest running second here. He's won this race already 4 times with his trainees. And while Forte is going to get more attention, I think, on Saturday here, don't sleep on Tappet Trice. I think he's got what it takes to come late in this race here and make a race of it.
All right. Well, a lot of folks excited about number 2. How about this number 3 horse here, Arcangelo, Marco D'Angelo? What do you think here of this number 3 horse? I believe 8-1 here. Intriguing prospect, much like Maj is what I hear people are comparing him to. What do you think?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think they had a typo. I think it should have been Marco D'Angelo instead of But anyways, this horse has a better chance than me in a mile and a half. Let me tell you that. This horse actually does have a big upside. Only 4 career starts, and the horse has improved his speed figures in all 4. What also that I like about this horse is Big Sandy, Belmont Racetrack, is different surface than most other tracks around the country. It's a big, tiring track. The Big Sandy's because a little bit of the sand base in the surface, and it can tire a lot of horses out. That's why it's called the Test the Champions for the mile and a half race. But what I like is this horse already has a race over this course. Won the Peter Pan Stakes, which is a big prep race for the Belmont. So if you want to go with home court edge, that definitely goes to the 3 Arcangelo. Trainer Antonucci hitting last 30 days, win rate of 36%. That's another big plus for this horse. Picks up Castellano, who we know got his first Derby win this year with Maj, whichever way you want to call the horse. This could be a first Belmont for him as well. He's going to be up against it in this one against some more seasoned horses. But I'm going to tell you, maybe for sentimental reason, I'll have him on a ticket a couple times here with that name, but legitimately has a shot to run third or fourth on the tries and supers. So don't rule this one out. If it takes another jump speed figure wise, it's going to be right there with these other horses. And you hear me talk about it all the time, that horses with just 3 or 4 starts definitely have the opportunity to make that big jump. And with just 4 career starts, I'm looking for this one to go make another notch forward. So don't rule them out, even though I got all the odd horses that seem not to have a chance in this Belmont.
Well, Javier back on top, so we'll see here what happens with this horse. How about the next horse here? Number 4 here, Sig, is what we're looking at. National Treasure, 5-1. A lot of buzz about this horse here. What are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, Joe, the Preakness winner is coming back on just 3 weeks rest here to try to secure 2 jewels of the Triple Crown for 2023. Obviously, he couldn't race as a Baffert trainee in Kentucky for the Kentucky Derby, so that first leg was out here. But Baffert is now back in New York for the Belmont Stakes this year. Kentucky gave him a 2-year suspension following the positive test for Medina Spirit after the 2021 Derby. In New York, most other racing jurisdictions follow after a suspension like that in their jurisdiction as well. New York only gave him a 1-year suspension, so he had nothing last year on the New York circuit or for the Belmont Stakes, but he is back here with John Velasquez aboard, who rode him just at Pimlico just 3 weeks back to a victory in the Preakness here. They had everything their way at Pimlico a couple weeks back here for the Preakness. They controlled the pace there, and Velasquez left enough in the tank for National Treasure to hold off Blazing Sevens late there to win the Preakness. I think they're going to get a little more challenge here on the front end. The jockey saw what happened at Pimlico. He's done it before. Velasquez did this with Authentic a couple years ago. They just control the pace and leave enough in the tank here. Somebody's going to go out there and challenge National Treasure, whether it's Forte, who also likes to be on the front end oftentimes, or another horse in this field that's going to go out, like Marco said, maybe be a rabbit and give him a little pressure on the front end. So they're going to have to use a little more horse. They're also going an additional 2 furlongs here than they did in the Derby, and he actually a little bit longer than even that at Pimlico. That's going to make a big difference here. It's the horse's stamina. And while Baffert's been good at training that, this horse doesn't have the most impressive resume. He's only got 2 wins to his career. It was a maiden win and that Preakness win. Everywhere else, he's usually been a bridesmaid. Maybe he'll make up the trifecta or the exacta. But this horse, does he have a chance? We can't write him off. I'm not going to say no to that, but I think we got better options in here. National Treasure might be at the bottom on some exotic tickets for me on Saturday, but not on too many win tickets.
Yeah, well, it's certainly a little bit longer of a shot in this one for him, so we'll see. Number 5 here. Oh, this is a perfect one, Marco, huh? Il Miracolo, which, from what I understand, means miracle, and we might just need one for this horse even to finish the race here. 30-1, Marco. Let me hear it. Pass. Come on.
Well, damn it, you took my line. That's the only thing I had to say about this. So it translates to it's going to take a miracle. Damn you, Joe. I'm out of here.
This horse is awful. Why is he here?
There is no reason in the world for this horse to be here. The horse has 10 career starts. You hear me talk about that on the road to the Derby as well, that, you know, when a horse has that many starts, they are what they are. And you know what? This horse isn't anything that deserves to be in the Belmont. The only thing that he could be a factor in this race is in his last race, he did go wire to wire, and they did it in swift fractions. 23 first quarter, 45 and 3 to the half. They get that kind of first half, that would be a problem for National Treasure. So that's about the only way he can impact this race. But he is an absolute toss. Will be on no tickets, no savers, nothing, nada, gone, out.
Yeah, it's shocking. There's always one, And I think that's the one where we're all scratching our heads here, but not so much on number 6 here. Sig Forte, 5-2, Todd Pletcher, but still a lot of question marks around this horse after being scratched, right, from the Derby. Is he healthy? Is he 100%? Are you convinced? What do you think here?
Joe, I think he's healthy, and you know what, guys? If you watched this show for the Kentucky Derby, Forte was my top selection. Unfortunately, he got vet scratched the morning of the race due to a bruise on his hoof. That bruise basically mandated a 2-week rest period for him, kept him out of the Preakness as well. So what was your best 2-year-old and your best 3-year-old leading into the Kentucky Derby has basically missed the biggest races of his 3-year-old season so far. He does get a shot to come back here, though, on Saturday at Big Sandy for a chance at the Belmont Stakes here. The Violence Colt has now had 6 weeks off since that scratch for the because of the scratches following that win in the Florida Derby. I'm sorry, it's actually been 8 weeks since the Florida Derby here. He's continued to train well for Todd Pletcher, though. The only thing is he missed a few weeks of training due to that scratch. Will his stamina be up to par with where it was? I think it will be, like I said earlier when we talked about Tappa Trace. Todd Pletcher knows how to have a horse ready for this. The extra rest may be a hindrance to him, may actually help him a little bit. He's going to have a fresh horse here. Irad knows how to get him up there and knows when exactly to get him to go. He was the best 2-year-old out there. He was your best 3-year-old leading up to the Kentucky Derby scratch. The only question I have with him is, can he handle the distance? I think we'll be talking about him later when we get to my top pick. So,
all right. Well, then we'll move on here to number 7, Marco. Hit Show, I believe 10-1 now. Was on the rail, I think. Wasn't a bad race there in the Derby, but what do you think about his chances here at Big Sandy?
Yeah, Joe, Hit Show, Brad Cox trainee, so you know you got to take a good hard look at him. And if you go back to that Kentucky Derby, if you just look on paper, you see that he finished 5th in the Derby. He lost ground in the stretch, so you say, ho-hum, not that great. But if you dig deeper, that race wasn't that bad. And why? You brought it up to start. He had the rail. We all know that's the dreaded post position at the Kentucky Derby. So what did that mean for him? Manny Franco had to hustle him out of the gate to try to get away before the entire wave of the 18-horse field came down and pinned him at the rail. So he used the horse harder than he normally would use him in the race. Also, because he was hustled away from the gate, he was a lot closer to that absolutely torrid pace that surprised all of us in the Derby. We didn't think after last year that they would be dumb enough to go that fast again. Well, they did, and he was pretty close to that pace. He moved into contention in that final turn where it looked like he was going to be a factor. Then he flattened out in the stretch. If they rate this horse better in this race, I think he has a big shot of hitting the ticket. Does he make my final cut when we get to the end of the show? Well, I'll tell you about that then. But this is a horse at 10-1 that I would not overlook. I'm going to go ahead and say it right now. He is a live long shot to hit your tickets. Don't throw him completely out of it because of that Derby finish.
All right. Well, we got some horses, as you guys can hear, that certainly at pretty good numbers have a good shot, especially Sig, number 8, Angel of Empire here. What do you think? Arkansas Derby winner. Good effort at the Derby. What do we do here with Angel of Empire at 7-2?
Yeah, Joe, good thing you mentioned the Derby there, because I want to go back to the Derby here real quick and just do a little recap. Two Phils ran the best race that day, that first Saturday in May. Mage won the race after having that fantastic late run down the stretch, making the move here. But if you watch that race over and over, which I have done, Angel of Empire was the best horse late in that race. If you watched him coming down the stretch run, that race goes a little bit further. He wins that race. And I think they've been training this horse for this Belmont. He galloped out really well after that Arkansas Derby. He galloped out really well again following the Kentucky Derby here. Trainer Brad Cox is adding blinkers on Saturday, hoping to get this colt a little more focused on the task at hand. And the task at hand is winning the Belmont Stakes. The most difficult task for Pratt on Saturday is going to be keeping this horse a little bit closer and a lot closer than that early pace that I'm sure that the addition of blinkers is going to help here. That's one tool the connections are using to help do that. I believe Angel of Empire is the most dangerous horse in the starting gate on Saturday and should be a threat to both the Pletchers and the Baffer, who will attract the bettors. I think you're going to get a pretty good price on Angel of Empire, and I think I'm going to be talking about it a little later in the show.
Just gotta love Brad Cox here. I mean, come on. You tapping shoes, hit show. Now he's got Angel of Empire. It'll be real interesting here, to say the least. Number 9, Marco, right up your alley. Red Route 1 at a 15-1 shot here. I don't know. Are you going to give him an honorable mention here? What do you think? Is this a half a pass?
This horse has a chance to run on the bottom end of the trifecta or superfecta. The horse, if you look at past performance lines, the horse is always there. He's always trying. But if you go to the far right in the past performance lines, they have these little things. They're red triangles, and those signal that the horse had trouble in the race at some point. Well, if you look at this horse, he's had a grand total of 10 career starts. That's the only knock on him. You know what I say about the horses. They are what they are. But this is a horse that does hit the board 50% of the time. This is a horse that has danced all of the big races. He's got loaded with grade 1, grade 2 stake races. So he's not like he's racing against chumps. And he has had one of those red triangles in every race but 3. Okay, so 7 of his 10 career starts, he's had some road trouble. So if he gets a clean trip, and the beauty of a 1.5-mile race is there's a lot of time to make up for mistakes, okay, if you hit some road trouble. So if this horse gets a clean trip, he can run on the bottom of the ticket. He's got the speed figures that can go with these horses. I give him a shot on the bottom. Joel Rosario is a patient jockey that you have to be in the Belmont. The big mistake that a lot of people make when they race in this race for the first time is they make that move going into the last turn. You still got a lot of race left in that going into that last turn, because it's that big sweeping turn, and then you got the long straightaway. You need to save that move to at least halfway through that turn so that you don't use your horse up and flatten out in the stretch. Smarty Jones, if we remember, just running out of gas in this race. We thought had the Triple Crown several years ago. I'm going to put this horse on some bottom ends of tickets, but for a win candidate, I don't think he's quite as good as the rest of this field.
Steve Asmussen, pretty nice number, 15-1. There's a few horses in here with, it sounds like, have a pretty good shot of hitting the board at a pretty good price. So maybe not the chalkiest of Belmont Stakes here this weekend. We will find out to see exactly what Sig and Marco have on their card for us. But a quick reminder, if you head over to WagerTalk.com and visit both Sig's page and or Marco's page there and use that code BEL10 at checkout. That's BEL10. You get $10 off either of their packages right now. Sig, of course, will have his entire card Friday and Saturday racing at Belmont there for $29. You can use the code. You can also do the same with Marco, who's got an entire day of betting, whether or not it's the Belmont here, but also NHL, NBA, Major League Baseball going on. Grab all of his plays there for just $39, including all of those races at Belmont. It's a huge weekend of racing, and partner up with these two guys now over at WagerTalk.com using that code BEL10 at checkout. All right, Sig, I am coming to you because I trust that you had a lot of the fun horses to talk about here. So lay it out for us, and then we'll see how many of Marco's picks actually include the horses that he had to talk about. So kick it off, Sig. What do you got for us here, my man?
Well, Joe, it's a 9-horse field that we talked about. I had the even horses, which meant I talked about 4 horses. And you know what? My 4 horses are the ones that made my card here. I went all evens. I went 8-6-4-2 here for this weekend's Belmont Stakes. I landed on the 8 Angel of Empire here, 7-2 on your morning line. Flavian Pratt's riding for Brad Cox here. Like, guys, I mentioned in my preview earlier in the show, Rewatching the Kentucky Derby multiple times, I can't help to wonder that if Angel of Empire beat Mage to the hole coming at the top of the stretch in that far turn, if we see a different result in this year's Derby here. He was moving the best at the end of that Derby and galloped that really well in both the Derby and that Arkansas in his previous race, the Arkansas Derby. Brad is one of the best jockeys riding today around the world. He learned his lesson having to bring this colt from way too far back that first Saturday in May at Churchill here. The addition of blinkers plus the experience gained in that last race here gets this colt to the winner's circle on Saturday, in my opinion. My second choice was Forte, who was my top choice going into the Kentucky Derby here. He's missed a few weeks of training here due to that hoof bruise. May have set him back just a little bit here, but he was the best 3-year-old on the track leading up to that first Saturday in May. He was your top 2-year-old last year winning the Breeders' Cup Juvenile here, and he's got a trainer who knows how to win the Belmont Stakes and Todd Pletcher here. Like I said earlier, my biggest concern is will the missed training result in a little less stamina in this colt? Going those 12 furlongs on Saturday is the test of a champion. We'll find out if Forte is a champion. Third choice was the 2, Tappet Trice, also Todd Fletcher here. This time Luis Saez aboard. Tappets have won 4 of the last 9 Belmont Stakes here, and Todd Fletcher was quoted earlier in the years touting this horse for being made primarily for the Belmont Stakes. The problem is that Tappet Trice usually creates his own issues, breaking from the gate slow. But even with troubled trips here in the past, he didn't have a terrible Derby. I expect the rebound in a much smaller field here on Saturday. And while it wouldn't be a huge upset, this colt could be your Belmont winner here. Fourth choice, I landed on the Bob Baffert horse, National Treasure, your Preakness winner. He had things go exactly the way he wanted them to in the Preakness of Pimlico. It's going to be a little bit tougher for him here, I think. I think some horses are going to challenge him on the front end. Won't have everything his way. And my biggest concern about National Treasure is the distance here with him. Yes, Baffert's won the Belmont Stakes with a few different horses here, but this is a different Bob Baffert. He's not winning at the way he was winning before. I don't think National Treasure has it in him to be a winner at the 12 furlong distance here, but I think Baffert also wants to send a message to the NYRA that says, hey, F you suspended me for a year here. I still got horses. I can still do it here. National Treasure is my fourth choice in here. My Belmont Stakes selections, guys, are 8, 6, 2, and 4.
All right, there we go. Taking a look, 8, 6, 2, and 4. That would, Marco, that's a lot of even-numbered horses here. It's can't wait to see if you've mixed in any odd numbers here, Marco, at all in your selections, or are you in full agreement that the even horses are it? That Sig nailed it.
The even horses are definitely it. When we get to the fourth one, I'll tell you about that. But I'm going to start it off with Angel of Empire, and this is his horse, his race to lose. As Sig said, Two Phils was incredible in that race, did all the heavy lifting, and was still there at the wire. Angel of Empire, the only reason this horse did not win the Kentucky Derby is there was one hole in Mage got to it first and got the jump on Angel of Empire, and that was the difference in the race. Once Angel of Empire was able to get through and start in gear, this horse was absolutely flying in the stretch, just ran out of racetrack. Well, guess what? We're going a mile and a half. There's no going to be running out of racetrack today. Got plenty of racetrack to make it up. Sig also pointed out the addition of blinkers. We've talked about this a lot on this show with the addition of blinkers. That's going to get the horse's attention and is going to be closer to the pace in this race. Plus the fact it's only a 9-horse field. It doesn't have to get around 18 horses like they had to navigate in the Kentucky Derby. They skipped the Preakness for one reason. This is the race they're pointing for. When they didn't win the Derby, there was no reason to go to the Preakness. This horse is fresh and ready. And Brad Cox has 3 horses in this race. So the other 2 could lend a helping hand if he needs it in case a certain horse named National Treasure gets on the front end with slow fractions. They can make sure that doesn't happen. I like Angel of Empire. The horse I like second is Tappet Trice. And the reason I like this horse, this is another horse that if you go back and watch the Derby, you look just at the past performance lines in a program, looks not that great. The horse was way back, closed, made up some ground in the stretch, but yeah, it should have because it was passing tired horses. but go back and actually watch what happened. This horse has a history of not wanting to race inside. The horse got buried down at the rail early in the race. Doesn't like to be raced in tight quarters. They had to finally swing the horse wide. When they swung the horse wide, they were making their move in the turn. Maybe a move that was made a little bit too early, plus it was putting the horse out there 4 wide, losing a ton of ground. I think the horse races better today. They're going to be able, with a 9-horse field, even though draws an inside post, they'll be able to move the horse to sit outside of a couple horses. Doesn't have to worry about being pinned down at the lane. And if you want to talk about breeding, this is probably the best bred horse for this distance. We know the history of Tappet horses in the Belmont, and you look at both sire and dam side. I like this horse. $1.3 million yearling, all of that. Big race coming up on Saturday. Todd Pletcher knows how to get a horse ready. He's the king of the New York circuit. I'll go ahead, put him second. For my third choice, yeah, you got to use Forte until the horse shows that he does something wrong. Why not? But my concern is, yes, they've been training the horse. The problem is you don't get the same in training as you do in a race. And this is a race. Sig noted that Todd Pletcher knows how to get a horse ready for a race off a layoff. That's true, he does. But how many trainers really have horses off long layoffs get ready for a 1.5 mile race? Okay. This is something that this horse probably, may never race a 1.5 mile again. So to get that total conditioning when you lost 2 weeks because of the foot bruise, then you haven't raced since the Florida Derby. That is a major concern for me. Will the horse be there in this race, hit the board? Yes. But I just don't think that the horse will have enough in the tank to win this race against 2 other horses that are absolutely bred for this distance, had their prep race being the Kentucky Derby, had that race in between and fresh as well. That's why I have him third. For my 4th spot, by default, I put the 4-horse National Treasure, Bob Baffert. And the only reason I did that, I don't like this horse to win this race, but if he does get soft fractions, he can hold on to finish 4th in this race. That's why I put him 4th. To be honest with you, I like Hit Show as a long shot. I think the horse has more upside and is a better fit for this race. And quite frankly, he's going to make you a better price ticket for your trifecta and superfecta. So I will have 8, 2, 6 in the top 3 spots, but I'll be honest with you, in that 4th spot, I'm going to be sprinkling through the 4 and the 7, and even a little bit on Archangel as well, to that home court advantage from racing in the Peter Pan. But this is all Angel of Empire on Saturday.
All right, there we go. 8, 2, 6, and 4 for a Marco at the Belmont this weekend. So the final leg of the Triple Crown is almost upon us here, but plenty of racing still to go throughout the rest of the year. But we got to get through Saturday. Hopefully air quality improves. All will be well there at the Belmont. But don't forget, visit Marco's page over at WagerTalk.com as well as Sig and use that code BEL10. That's right. Use that code at checkout, guys. Get $10 off any one of their packages here. Marco's got that $39 all-access package. Includes all sports as well as all plays at the Belmont. And Sig has got his entire Friday and Saturday Belmont cards ready for you here. $29 available at his page at wt.buzz/Sig. And that'll do it for us here on this edition of the Pony Pundits. Certainly invite you guys to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and then come back and join us. We got, again, much more racing still to come throughout the year, and we have always got you covered here with the Pundits. And on behalf of Sig and Marco, we appreciate the time, guys. Best of luck with all your races and all your plays this weekend, and we'll talk to you again soon. Good luck.